Hi, my name is Rachelle Smith, certified personal fitness trainer, professional speaker, and author. Last time, once again, highlighted the importance of having an audit mentality before shifting on into a conversation on inspiration or imitation, and how it's so important, yes, to be inspired by people, but not to imitate them, particularly because there's so many things behind the scenes like genetics and tenure, athletic ability that you aren't aware of, and so it's just wrong to go in and just try to blindly imitate people. But I actually want to revisit briefly this conversation before I shift into this week's conversation. And that is, again, the importance of having an audit mentality. It doesn't matter if you're in a 3,000 square foot facility or you're in a 120,000 square foot facility. Having an audit mentality and having your employees, starting again, top-down leadership, ownership, general manager, assistant managers, all the way down, is so important because it helps to prevent problems. All right, and lawsuits. And actually, I was reading something this morning before I went to the gym here, and it's found here in the Oakland Press, was published on December 2nd. Long story short here, I'm gonna fly through this, but it makes a very, very good point. Again, how the importance of having an audit mentality. All right, the Michigan Court of Appeals sends Novi, again, my suburb right here in Novi rock climbing injury lawsuit back to Oakland County Circuit Court. All right, so in a nutshell, the Michigan Court of Appeals recently sent back to Circuit Court a lawsuit alleging negligence after a Novi father contended he was seriously injured at a local fitness center when a rock climbing harness wasn't attached correctly. All right, so this particular gentleman, David Alvarez, filed a lawsuit against Lifetime Fitness, probably about 6-7 miles south of here, right here in the suburb of Novi. All right, so claiming negligence, okay? And what happened was, yes, this family signed a recreational waiver releasing Lifetime of all claims of negligence. All right, no one in the family had climbed before, and as my father stated when I was discussing some legal topics this summer, one thing my father said after more than 30 years, and of course I will be interviewing him in the new year, some leadership lessons in fitness facility leadership. And that is, all right, your liability waivers are not going to protect you from employee incompetence. All right, so you really, really, really got to think things through and don't think that those waivers are going to protect you from everything. So ultimately, folks, the guy fell, had several injuries to his back and legs. All right, so he argued in his lawsuit that the employee who strapped him into his harness was grossly negligent and failing to ascertain whether Mr. Alvarez had properly attached his harness and belay system before permitting him to climb the rock wall or descend. All right, so now once this was in the circuit court, local circuit court, okay, basically they sent this on to the Court of Appeals, and I'm sure Lifetime and their band of lawyers there at the corporate in Minnesota thought this was over. It was going to be a summary disposition, and it was going to be over based on the fact that this gentleman and his family had signed the liability waivers. All right, so not the case. All right, so the appellate court judges wrote in their opinion that the case should be remanded back to circuit court, Judge Hala Jarbu's courtroom for trial. All right, because the deposition testimony basically states the employee was face to face with Alvarez when he clearly had the climbing harness on backwards. All right, goes on to say the employee's alleged failure to affirmatively instruct David on the proper way to wear the harness before he donned it himself, coupled with the employee's alleged disregard for the red loop warning sign that David had his harness on backwards and instructing him to push off the wall, could demonstrate to a reasonable juror that the employee simply did not care about the safety or welfare of David. All right. Accordingly, reasonable minds could differ regarding whether the employee's conduct constituted gross negligence. All right. So the case is going to be resuming on January 5th and back here at circuit court. All right. So again, negligence. All right. And then who's to say if the young man, who was, overseeing the rock wall that day is even employed still with Lifetime. And so just recognize, again, particularly if, again, Lifetime is a higher end facility, higher end chain. Like I said, they've got a band of lawyers to deal almost with this case, which was filed 3 years ago. But as I told you this summer when I studied fitness facility case law, okay, lawsuits are constantly filed against all types of facilities in this country, except for military facilities. And of course, we're going to talk more about that in the new year. All right, so people are always filing lawsuits, negligence and negligence. All right, so again, this is an example, and this is why I just firmly believe, and you've heard me say countless times, owners, general managers, assistant managers. Okay, you've got to have a high level accountability in your facilities. All right, because when you don't, and this is probably just, I'm sure under this circumstance, you probably had a nice, very trusting general manager, a couple of assistant managers, just thinking everybody's doing what they're supposed to do and everything is fine. It's up to you, as John C. Maxwell, the world-renowned leadership expert, said, everything rises and falls on leadership. All right, so that's why I often say, your owners, those of you who are owners, general managers, assistant managers, are you walking that floor? How much time are you spending on the floor just observing, just making sure, things are the way they're supposed to be, things are happening and things aren't happening. All right, because when you're, the one moment, you turn a blind eye, that's when something like this happens. All right, and like I mentioned, I could mention this summer, there's case after case after case of all different types of lawsuits filed. Okay, negligence, negligence, negligence. Why? One thing my father said since I was a child growing up, this concept of being asleep at the switch. Okay, being negligent, just not doing what you're supposed to be doing. All right, and so leadership, this all falls on you. All right, so I just saw this literally before I went to the gym this morning. I was reading on my iPad, and I said, I've got to highlight this. Okay, my gym in Louisiana, Bel Air Fitness, wonderful facility. As I mentioned this summer when I was talking about the legal issues, yes, the huge two-story gym is on one side of the building. On the other side of the building is the Bel Air Learning Center. Okay, I want to say 6 or 7 parents, sets of parents, sued Bel Air, okay, for negligence. All right, why? Because kids were being mistreated. Fortunately, the video cameras in the film caught it, but kids were being mistreated. So they've had to hire, a whole new administrative person just to oversee human resources and hiring and background checks. And this is something my father just truly espouses, yes, in child learning and child development centers and daycares, formal daycares, but also in fitness facilities, okay? You got a lot of people that are operating fitness facilities that will just go hire some random high school student and allow them to watch, those of you who bring kids to the daycare centers or child care centers within facilities. No, the questions you need to be asking are, are your people certified? Are everyone working in this child care center, on your child care staff here in the daycare in the gym or any type of fitness facility, are they certified? Do they have a CDA? Are they a certified child development associate, CDA or CCP? All right, certified child care professional. Okay, what certification? Who are these people? How are they hired? Okay, like I said, Bel Air lost all of those lawsuits. Okay, all right, and yes, it happened in the learning center on the other side of the building, but they still have that same tendency where the staff, particularly the front desk staff, will congregate on the first floor like it's an episode of Friends. All right, no, you people need to be up and on. This is a 2-level gym. Somebody could be having something going on the second floor, and you guys are down here congregating, and that is very, very common to have a lot of people at the front desk or whatever chatting and not paying attention. Okay, that can be negligence. When something happens, when something goes wrong, that can be negligence, and that can be one of these many lawsuits that are filed on a regular basis. And I don't want that to be you, so I wanted to bring this point home yet again by highlighting this fresh information. But I do want to shift gears this episode and talk about the wrong way to motivate people. All right, and this is something, yet another reason why so many people fail in fitness. Again, the inspiration, or the imitation that I mentioned last week, but also just the wrong way to motivate people. Okay, threats, ultimatums, okay, demands, all of that shaming. Fat shaming is actually a very common kind of term that's emerged here in the last few years. Okay, all of those ways don't work. And I'm sure in 2017, I'm actually going to pull out the B.F. Skinner model, where you're talking about negative versus positive reinforcement, folks. For the long term, positive reinforcement is always much more effective. Okay, you demand that somebody lose weight or get fit, or give them some type of threat, or threaten them, or have some ultimatum. If you don't lose 50 pounds in the next 6 months, I'm going to leave you. I mean, that stuff happens all the time, unfortunately. Okay, but it does not work. And unfortunately, when those negative reinforcement and those negative, behaviors are used to try to motivate people, people actually end up, in many cases, getting worse. All right, I was on campus a couple months ago, was back in Evansville, Illinois, for our alumni leadership meeting. And a person that I mentored here from the Metro Detroit area graduated in June 2016 and now working in Chicago. But this person's sibling is now a sophomore at Northwestern. And so I was having a conversation. Like I said, I mentor the older one, but I still keep touch base with the younger one when I'm on campus. So this person was telling me, the father had said, if you don't lose a certain amount of weight before X date, then I'm not paying your airfare to come home for the holidays. And I remember thinking when I heard that, now who does this? But as I, got in my car and I was thinking like, a lot of people do this. A lot of people, that was probably a well-meaning parent, but the weight issues of the two children were more an issue of the parents. As I was hear the feedback in terms of comments were made and things like that, the parents were ashamed. All right. It wasn't necessarily a health issue or concerns for the children, because unfortunately all those negative threats and ultimatums and demands, they have both gained weight instead of losing weight. All right. And that happens to so many people, just people that think they have great intentions and that's going to work. It does not work. I can give you a couple of examples here at my gym. One very, very recent. Okay. Nice lady, 77 years old, came up to me. It had to be probably around July. Yeah, around late July. I was on a weight machine. That's always a great place to chat me up. And so, she came to me and, she's talking to me. I've been at this for a year. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. Way to go. Keep it up. And, my husband and I have been coming for a year. And I thought maybe she was a lifetime member of Valley Fitness, but I hadn't seen her there before. But, no, they had just been at this gym, was doing the best that she could. And I could tell just even talking to her. Okay, fragile motivation. And that's, what did I tell you? Most people, when it comes to fitness, struggle with fragile motivation. Okay, there are very few outliers on the front end of that bell curve that are folks that are just super highly motivated and super highly fit. Okay, but most people fall under that bell curve and struggle and have fragile motivation. So she's telling me, I'm doing the best I can, whatever, yada, yada. Keep up the great work. I'm giving her this positive encouragement while we're chatting for a couple of minutes. All right, so then a couple weeks later, I see her again, and I'm on the leg curl machine, and so, great way to chat. So she comes up to me, we started chatting again. Oh, I've got to introduce you to my husband now. He's the biggest teddy bear, and he is also my drill instructor trainer. And I thought to myself, yeah, okay, whatever. So the husband comes over, and I'm thinking, okay. And so, folks, she's saying, this is Rachelle, and whatever, this and that, and yada, yada, yada. And folks, the husband looks at her and says, looks at me, then looks at his wife, then says to her, see, she's fit. And the woman was 77 years old, and people in their 20s would envy this woman's fitness. They had no weight problems. But again, this husband, and I looked at him like, okay, now, is John Quinones about to come in? That's what I always think. Like, is this some type of what would you do setup? Like, what is this? Like, who does this in front of their spouse or to their spouse? All right, directly comparing someone to someone else who's decades younger than a person. All right, and I told you the woman struggled with fragile motivation anyway, and I very rarely see her come. She was 4 or 5 days a week before. Now, if I see her once a week, that's a good week in terms of my seeing her and in the gym, whatever. Why? Negatively comparing people, it does not work. It kills their motivation. It kills their spirit. All right, and then I looked at him, and seriously, folks, he's about 5 feet tall, maybe 5'1". And I was thinking to myself, now this man has probably had a lot of bullying and teasing about his height over the years. Unfortunately, I know men really bear a tough road when it comes to that. But projecting your own insecurities onto your spouse because you feel inadequate, inferior, and struggle with insecurities, perhaps. Now you're going to make it your job now to make your wife feel the same way. When, like I said, the woman's in good shape, doing a great job at 77, putting other younger people to shame. So negative motivation. He killed her spirit. Okay, June of 2015, I remember exactly what I had on my Purple issue shirt, and I'm on the lat pull down machine, like I said, the cable machine where people have a tendency to interrupt me, whatever. I'm pulling down, I come back up after the set, this guy comes in, has his gym bag on, over his shoulder and says, hey, gave me a compliment, you're always making things happen every time I come in here, keep up the great work, whatever, thank you so much, sir. He was, much older. And so he says, you know what, I'm going to go put my bag up, but I want to introduce you to my wife. Okay, cool, no problem, whatever. Folks, long story short, he puts his bag up, the wife comes back out. Now, from a BMI, from a body mass index standpoint, they're both morbidly obese. So I was happy for them. They were in there, doing their best to make things happen, which is wonderful and should be applauded. So the wife comes and he says, oh, her name is Rachelle, and, she's always making things happen every time I come in here. So he looks at his wife and says, you know what, can you give my wife some fitness tips? She really needs to lose some weight. And I'm like, now what is this? Again, John Quinones, at any moment, he's got to be coming in here. And so, folks, again, you know, and women, don't do that to whether it's your boyfriend, your fiance, your spouse, even your buddy or your workout buddy that you're working with. Do not do those direct comparison, okay? That makes people feel bad, that kills their spirit, that kills their motivation, Lord. And so many people give up because of that, all right? And I don't want that to be you. And if you're on the receiving end of that, be resilient, but also recognize a lot of times people who are insecure, struggling with inadequacy, inferiority, will project their own insecurities onto you. Okay, they feel badly about themselves, so they want you to feel the same way about yourself, okay? And so recognize, again, your decision to get fit, your decision to pursue a fitness journey can be threatening to people around you, particularly if they're used to you being a certain way and a certain size and having a certain lifestyle that wasn't fit. But the minute you change, okay, you've got to be confident, you've got to be secure, you've got to believe in yourself and what you're doing in order to be successful. But folks, don't use negative motivation to think that you're going to impact and make a difference in someone's life. The only thing they're going to do is more often than not, give up, okay, throw in the towel. And we don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. The reason why I get up every day, because I want people to be successful, regardless of what they're doing in their lives. So folks, recognize negativity, the threats, ultimatums, demands, all of that are just a waste of time. Do what's right. Be positive, be encouraging, be supportive, and I assure you, those of you who are motivating in leadership roles to motivate other people, you will see them succeed. But also those of you who have friends and family members and even total strangers in the gym, encourage people, all right, because encouragement always works, all right, over the threats and the negativity. So I thank you so much for your time. Make it a wonderfully fit day.